Hi, you're a hard man to reach to. I'm glad I made it today. My name's Felix. I have a question for you about healthcare.
All right.
I disagree with you on this issue. We spend more on per capita than any other country in the world and have some of the worst results. According to the World Health Organization, we were 37th in 2000, 49th in 2009, and 50th in 2010. We also lead in mortality amenable to healthcare with over 45,000 people that will die every year because of it. The top 17 countries, and I have the list right here, that have the best healthcare in the world uses some form of universal healthcare, whether that be single payer or two-tiered system or a government mandated program. I am curious to know why you continue to deny that universal healthcare is an effective system. And before you answer the question, I personally would advocate for a two-tiered system, not single payer.
Okay. So the answer is that it depends on what you're going for. Really, it does. There's a couple reasons. Well, let me put it this way. Here's the framework that I use when I'm thinking about healthcare. Before that, just organizing my thoughts here. Before that, the first thing to mention is that all of the countries that are doing really well on healthcare also were doing well on healthcare before the implementation of a nationalized healthcare system. It's not the national healthcare system that changed Sweden into a healthy country or Norway into a healthy country. These were healthy countries before that happened. That's just the way it is. The United States is mainly unhealthy because we eat a bunch of shit here, right? I mean, that really is the reason. Our diet is really different than it is in, for example, Japan or in Norway, where people tend to exercise more and are healthier as an overall metric. So comparing populations is not like, it depends on where you're comparing. If you compare Norwegians in the United States to people who live in Norway, my guess is you probably wouldn't see an enormous difference in the level of healthcare obtained. Number two, the United States healthcare system is a disaster area. It's actually the worst of all possible worlds. It is not a free market system, and it's not a totally regulated system. It's somewhere in between, which means it's heavily regulated and heavily subsidized, which leads to increased costs. That's why it's so expensive. When we say that we're spending an enormous amount per capita, we should define who the we is. The we is not the government. The we is the government plus private expenditures on healthcare. Now, it's my decision whether I want to spend a lot of money on end-of-life care. It's my decision whether I want to spend a lot of money on immediate care. So it's not quite a one-to-one ratio the way that people are making it out to be. And that's why in the United States, for example, when it comes to 5-year cancer survival rates, we actually rank #1 in the world. That's because you actually have availability of healthcare if you can pay for it. The question is, how do you bring the cost down? So now to my model of how I think about healthcare. Dan McLaughlin in National Review puts it this way. He says you can have 3 things in healthcare. You can have affordability, universality, and quality. Those are the 3 things that you're looking for in healthcare. Every system can guarantee no better than 2. So most of the systems that you're talking about, if they are universal, they are not affordable in the sense that the government does rack up enormous surcharges on that basis. Now, that may not be as much as we're spending here because, as I say, we have the worst of all available systems. We're not free market and we're not nationalized. But Canada's healthcare system is extraordinarily expensive. Britain's healthcare is extraordinarily expensive. Norway's healthcare is extraordinarily expensive, which is why the tax rates on people in the middle class and lower classes is still exorbitantly high. Like, the United States actually has a far more progressive system of taxation than Switzerland or Sweden or Norway. Right? All of those countries have income taxes of 60% for folks making about 60 grand a year. It's really, really high. There is a cost to it. Now, the question is, what are you looking for? So what I am looking for is affordability and quality and not universality. Universal health care is good if you're looking for universality. If you're looking for universality and affordability, you don't spend a lot of money in your ration health care. You see some single-payer systems that are like this. If you're looking for universality and quality, then you don't care that much about affordability. You just spend an awful lot of money on it. And if you're looking for quality and affordability, then you have a free market system because that's what free markets generate. They can generate near universality, but not complete universality. This is true for food products, for example. It's not true that everyone has equal access to food, but food is extraordinarily cheap in the United States and very high quality, at least what you can get. So the question is, how do you wish to define the balance between rights and duties in a civilized society? My answer is I want affordability and quality, and I want social fabric picking up the rest, particularly at local level and hopefully before you get to the governmental level. The problem I have with the universal healthcare system is that it tends to drive down supply of doctors and nurses unless you spend exorbitant amounts of cash, right? You have to import people from other countries to do that work. This is what's happened in Britain, where they're importing a lot of their healthcare system from India, for example. Or you have to spend enormous sums of money. So are there nationalized healthcare systems that are better than ours? Yeah, there are. Australia is better than ours. Switzerland is better than ours. And I agree with you. If you were going to do this, you would want a 2-tiered system, right? Which is more like Switzerland. But in my view, the best of all available systems would be a wild deregulation of the healthcare system itself, leading to lowered costs, higher quality, and then what's left over can be filled in with relatively minimal investment.
Just one Then can I email you with some responses?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks. Love you too.
Good afternoon, Ben.
Hey,
my question is on Marbury v. Madison and judicial review. Would this be your primary argument against Roe v. Wade, that it was passed and it isn't in the Constitution? And do you think, as a follow-up to this, do you think it would be a better stance for social conservatives to take a libertarian approach, to say that you're against abortion for the moral reasons, but that you would support it if it was passed through the states?
No. So when it comes to Marbury versus Madison and the place of judicial review, I don't like judicial review as a basic element of the system. I think it's quite controversial whether Marbury versus Madison was correctly decided in the first place, because I don't think that the founders meant to create a super legislature of people who are the wisest and best among us to decide what the Constitution means. It's still kind of hotly contested in conservative legal circles whether judicial review is a thing. When it comes to abortion, the chief argument I have against Roe v. Wade on the constitutional level is that nowhere in the Constitution does it say there's a right to abortion, because there is no right to abortion in the actual Constitution of the United States. In fact, there's not anything even remotely approaching a right to abortion in the Constitution of the United States. However, when it comes to my moral stance on this, I'm not libertarian on abortion in the same way that I would not be libertarian on slavery. So in 1856, there was a very widespread debate in the United States between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas basically took the decentralized position on slavery. He said states should be able to decide for themselves whether or not they wish to preserve slavery or not. Why is it my business? It's not my state. It's not my life. The same argument could easily be made about abortion. Why is it my business? It's not my body. It's not my life. It's not my child. So, if a state decides to be liberal about abortion, well, that's their business. If you believe that human life is being violated on a fundamental level by abortion itself, you cannot stand idly by and then kick it to states for a libertarian cause. I'm fine with libertarian.
I always used to say blanket no across the board, because I think that you can box harder from the outside and make more of an impact. But now I just say exactly what Trump said 30 years before he ran, which is that if my country needed me, I would raise to the challenge and I would run. But at this point in time, I have no political ambitions.
Candace, welcome to Colorado from somebody whose family has been here for 7 generations.
Oh, wow.
But also, I wanted to know if Black Lives Matter has ever invited you to speak.
They have not, but I had them on my show, of course, because I like talking to the other side. So one of the first episodes of the Candace Owens Show on PragerU was to invite the leader of Black Lives Matter in New York on my show, because, their ideas are so stupid, you got to give it a platform, right? So we debated for an hour and 10 minutes, and it was so bad for him that Black Lives Matter people were writing saying he's not the real representative. I'm like, he's the chairman of Black Lives Matter. Who else could I didn't find a random kid protesting. I got the chairman, and he's just sitting here. He acknowledged all my points. I'm like, hey, so you acknowledge that white American men are more likely to be shot and killed unarmed by police? Yeah. You acknowledge that Hispanic American men are more like, yeah, but we have to start with Black America. So you acknowledge that as a Black American, you have a higher chance of being struck down by lightning than you do of being shot unarmed by a police officer. Yeah. You acknowledge that a police officer is 18 and a half times more likely to be shot by a Black man than the other way around. Yeah. It was just like, and then he says, the best part is, then I get to all this and I say, so you really care about Black lives, yeah? And he's like, yes, of course, that's my main thing. We have to make sure we protect Black lives. So you're pro-life. No, I don't get into that debate. 18 million Black babies aborted since 1973, 9-month term abortions on the line, more Black babies aborted than born alive in inner cities. And this man is sitting across from me telling me that the important thing to go after is the thing that's impacting 16 Black Americans a year. And that equates to 0.00004% of the Black population is impacted. And it's actually creating more of a problem for Black America because police officers don't want to do their job. So it actually raised the rate of homicide. It went up by 19% across the country after the Black Lives Matter movement, which is harmful. So I basically exposed them to be fraudulent, and I'm seeing it's changing now where I stay in touch with him, and they've done some things where they stood with the police officers in New York against Bloomberg. So they've done some things now that are a little more conservative, but I said to him, if you pick up a more pro-life stance and talk about how it's negatively impacting Black America and drop this bogus claim against our police officers and our law enforcement officers who have one of the toughest jobs in America, then I would be vocal for you. But until then, you guys are, morons, and that's really what they are.
Hi, check. Just want to make sure it's working. I just wanted to thank you so much for coming. My wife, who couldn't be here with me today, we're both big fans. We've been following you since the very beginning. We've been spreading the word about you and PragerU and Alex Jones around this valley, which is kind of a Democratic stronghold, if you have of that. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I have 2 quick questions. One, can I have an autograph?
Yes.
And 2, who of the Democratic Clown Show do you think will make it to the very end? Do you think anybody even has a chance?
You know what? I mean, up against Trump, I actually think it'll be Kamala Harris. Yeah, I just think it's going to be her because she sort of has backtracked on like the more, I mean when I say